A couple of questions
'Kay.
that popped in while you're speaking.
Yeah.
First one, well, both of them sort of around the verse in Romans that you talked about.
Yes.
I'm just going to read this one. In reference to the verses in Romans regarding those in authority being chosen by God,
Yes.
do you think this applies today? ? I'm thinking the abusive, racist, power-drunk police versus innocent people stories of late, and politicians with extremely suspect, possibly criminal activities going on.
Yeah.
The verse has also stated that we shouldn't fear authority if we obeyed, but we've seen tons of stories with exactly the opposite going on,
Sure.
i.e. the entire Black Lives Matter movement. Law-abiding citizens are afraid of authorities, and many with good reasons. In summary, are today's authorities chosen by God? Should we not fear authority if we've obeyed the laws?
Lots, a lot
It's
of questions.
loaded.
But
Yeah.
I tell you what. Here's where I would challenge you. Whoever asked the question, let me just throw it out there. If you think for some reason the political leaders today are not chosen by God because it's today versus when Scripture was referencing it in the past,
Right.
Well, then you haven't studied enough of the leaders of the past.
That's right.
Because for you to make the argument that, well, it's worse now, that is no possible way it is worse now. And again, there's another couple passages in the Old Testament where God referenced bringing in pagan nations. He actually brought in and allowed pagan nations to come in to establish a certain amount of stuff going on,
Right.
that actually created systems of laws to be able to help them better judge. But there's still something that happened. And you look at it and go, okay, wait, how does God do that? I'll be honest, I don't know. I don't know how he orchestrates all that, especially those who are their own free will are unfaithful and could be evil. How does God still ordain it or still place them? I don't know how it works. I do know from the past looking forward that he has proven that his plans will succeed and will continue no matter what. I think that the trust that we have is that no matter what happens, there is a higher authority at work.
Right.
So
the whole his ways are not our ways, his
Yeah.
thoughts are higher than our thoughts.
Correct.
I mean, you're talking about the Babylonian Empire, the
Correct.
Assyrian Empire, and even and you mentioned it during Jesus' life, Emperor Nero, just the widespread outrage and persecution against Christians. If you were a Christian, you were done.
Yeah, exactly.
Just the political tension that was going on in that era.
And when you reference Black Lives Matter, another thing, don't confuse what was written in Romans specifically about doing what's right and then you'll be fine. Don't confuse that with injustice. Like injustice is mentioned also in Scripture. The fact that still does happen, injustice still does happen, yet even in the midst of injustice, God has still got a plan, he's still at work, and that is part of, that's part of having to weigh those out. But it's a great question. It's fantastic.
It's an amazing question.
Walk down those paths.
Right.
So,
Right. So second question, like I said, I think it may have been relatively close. He stated that Scripture is telling us leaders are an authority and God placed them there for a reason. How does this apply to dictatorships and leaders who are the cause of human rights challenges? That's sort of along the same.
It's the injustice that, again, we would look at it and go, how could God possibly allow, right? How could he possibly allow it? And allow is probably the right term because I don't think people believe that God placed dictators in their place. I believe there's an aspect of sovereignty. Oh, hello. Well, hello. Well, hello there, Brad. I appreciate that. Yeah, there's an aspect of sovereignty that's at play that Romans 8 would address from the standpoint of, that even the earth itself and the people involved are groaning because of the brokenness that's there.
Yeah.
And I don't think we need to take the brokenness of what we see and stamp God on it and say, well, God obviously allows it and approves.
It's his will.
There's no way,
Right.
Absolutely no way. This is a situation where I believe God says, no, there's brokenness that exists. I will orchestrate my good through the chaos and brokenness that exists.
Yep.
But even as the earth groans, this is Romans 8, even as the earth groans and the policies and governments and everything else groan with it, there is a redemption coming. There's a redemption that's there.
Yep.
So it does fall into the category of the already but not yet feeling of tension that we have when we still deal with the atrocities that happen Middle East, everywhere else. It's it is. And you go, look, okay, even in the midst of that, what does he call me to do?
Right.
Well, to love those people, right?
Yep.
To serve, to point. And I think at that point, I think blaming God for the brokenness of the world is there's no one else to blame but us. And the free will
Yeah.
that we have,
Yep.
is not just the free will we have as Christians to follow God. It is the free will that those dictators have to not follow God and to do in their own life. And I believe the big part of the scripture says, okay, God will take care of those.
Right.
That was last week I read those scriptures. Like, God will take care of those who live their own way and do their own thing and dishonor him.
Right. Yeah, it makes me think.
I don't know how.
It makes me think about people who legislate.
Yes.
The whole abortion stuff gets into all that. What about those candidates that are pro-abortion or pro-choice?
Yep.
And regardless of whether or not those institutions are legal or not, that doesn't change our calling as Christians to reach out to people who are thinking about those things. Right.
Yeah, we did the prayer walk for life. We'll do it again in a couple weeks. But like, hey man, we do it because we want people to choose life. That's the goal, right?
That's
we want
exactly
people to choose life. But at the same time, whether or not it's legislated or not, it doesn't mean we can't work towards those things, but it's not the end-all, be-all as to whether or not those things still exist.
Yeah, the legislation never changes our call to love.
Nope,
right.
It's true.
Yeah. So
Great
good deal.
questions, yeah.
Yeah. So next week?
Next week is what to do. We didn't mention that at the end.
When you don't
That's
know what
weird.
to do.
We don't
Yeah, we
really
didn't.
do that. What to do when you don't know what to do. And it's a series on prayer, and it's a series that I'm excited about. Don and Zach and I are all three going to be able to speak into that series, and it's going to be good. So
Be great.
come back for it.
Join us next week. Going to be awesome. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good week.
Appreciate it, man.